How's it going, everybody? Ragaroth here. So one of the other kind of big surprises announced at Summer Game Fest, or the State of Play back in June, was not only Marvel Tokon, but also an Invincible fighting game called Invincible Versus. Both tag games with superhero characters. Definitely two of the biggest and probably best surprises, for me at least. I don't know what was more shocking, this or Marvel Tokon. It's kind of a toss-up there. I mean, I think a Marvel fighting game is probably less shocking, but I think the fact that Arc Systems Works was the one that kind of made it kind of makes it a little more harder to judge there. But anyway, so I made a top 10 list for Marvel Tokon, so I figured I would make one for Invincible as well. Especially since it seems like the information on the game is gearing up because we're starting to get character trailers and all of that. I know we got an official gameplay for like Rexplode, for instance, and we didn't really get gameplay of him, even though we knew he was in the game from the initial trailer. Now, I will say, I should probably say a disclaimer for this one, like, while I like Invincible, I am up to date on the show, I think it's a great show, this wasn't the easiest list, or at the very least, it's probably been a little hard explaining some of these choices. I think part of the problem is that a lot of the characters in Invincible, kind of the ones that get the most screen time or most battle time, at least the cool ones that everyone thinks of for the most part, they generally have very sort of basic power sets that are very similar. Like, a lot of them just kind of fight like Superman, but without, like, you know, heat vision and ice breath and things like that. Just kind of the, you know, they're very punchy, for lack of a better term. And again, I've only watched the show. I haven't read the comics. Maybe there's more that comes later on. Maybe I'm being ignorant. I don't know. But I kind of have faith that this, because we've already seen a couple characters with kind of those power sets in the game that seem to be fairly different, like Bulletproof, for instance. I don't really think he got much screen time, and yet he seems to be a character with his own moveset, so that doesn't seem to matter too much. You know, so these explanations might not be the best. Not saying my explanations are always super amazing anyway, just probably comparing them to my other top 10 lists, but I'll try, and I just want to talk about some characters I like. And of course, before we get started, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Would really help the channel out a lot, yada yada yada. But with that said, let's get this started. Just because I don't really have many other Invincible games to kind of get gameplay from. Most of the gameplay I'm going to just be taking from is going to just be Mortal Kombat 1, playing as Omni-Man, of course. And it's like, I'm already using a lot from the show. I don't want to kind of, you know, overdo it and maybe get hit with a copyright strike. I mean, I might already get it with, you know, what I have, but I figured not push my luck.
Number 10.
My plan was not to hurt you. But here we are.
Bite my shiny metal ass!
So I know Robot, I feel like, is a very divisive character in Invincible, partially because of, I guess, some of his awkward actions, but I think as a fighting game character, I think he'd be pretty cool. The first thing I imagine him being like, you know, of course I'll think maybe like Iron Man or something like that, but I actually see him more as kind of being like Ultron, kind of in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and potentially Marvel Tokon, but I actually also see him kind of being like Arya from Killer Instinct, which is perfect because this game is made from some devs that made Killer Instinct, where you'd be able to kind of switch through robot bodies and all that, and I guess you'd kind of have Rudy or Rex maybe being there as well. I don't know if he'd actually be on, like, you know, kind of a mid-battle. Maybe he'd be in the background, kind of like the Pokemon trainer in Smash Bros, something like that, and he'd just be commanding all the robot suits. And of course, like, maybe his super could be the giant one that I just kind of showed in the little intro that he used against the Mauler twins, something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. And I think his chances are pretty good. I mean, he's a pretty major character in the series, regardless of what people think of him. I mean, he's been in since season 1. So yeah, I think his chances are pretty damn good.
Number 9.
Who?
So we're already kind of doing a weird pick with Tech Jacket. From what I know of Tech Jacket, they are another Image Comics character that was kind of just, you know, in the whole Invincible War thing, kind of crossed over there, and we really haven't seen much of them actually do much in the show, and I don't know if we're going to see much more, to be honest. Again, I don't know all of what happens in the comics. And but I mean, from what I saw and heard, Tech Jacket looks pretty cool. And I mean, they took out the mustache Invincible, so I mean, they're clearly strong. I think I heard that like their suit is like maybe has technology that can take down Viltrumites or something like that. Now of course the immediate thing I see of is I think with Tech Jacket is an Iron Man kind of type character from Marvel vs. Capcom, something like that. Again, there could be more there that I'm not seeing that I don't know, but that's my initial impression. But honestly, yeah, I don't really have much more to say with this one. That's why they're kind of low on my list. If I knew more about them or they had more screen time, they would have probably been higher on this list, honestly.
Number 8.
Thrag. So yeah, kind of like Tech Jacket. Haven't really seen too much of this character. We haven't seen him in the show yet. I've heard a lot about him. I heard that shit gets even more real when he shows up. I've heard essentially he's pretty scary. He, eats nails for breakfast. He gargles acid, and he could probably beat Goku. I don't know about the third one. I'm just kidding there, but I've heard he's a big deal. I mean, his design looks awesome. And I'm actually very curious who they're going to get to voice him. I'm predicting it's going to be somebody that was an actor in The Walking Dead, just kind of with a lot of the cast already. But anyway, for his chances, I think he's definitely going to be in the game, but I'm probably thinking he's going to be more of a DLC character. I think they know he's going to sell well, just kind of with the hype and the kind of the mystique around him. I do know the game supposedly covers the comics. Like I think one of Bulletproof's supers is apparently something he's done in the comic, but not the show yet. So they might be they might be covering the comic, not just the show. I do think if he is in the base roster, he is going to be probably the last character that is shown off, the absolute last. But like I said, I'm more confident he'd be DLC if anything. And especially because, again, we don't know who's voicing him in yet. But yeah, that's really all I can say for Thrag. I hope to see him in the game. I'm just not very confident he's going to be in the base roster. And I can't really talk about what I think his playstyle is going to be like. He'd probably be a pretty strong character, though, I'd imagine, just from what I've heard.
Number 7.
Mark?
Whoa, hey. Who are you?
My name is...
Oh my God!
And I'm an agent of the Viltrum Empire.
So yeah, another Viltrumite big shock with Anissa. I think Anissa definitely made a lasting impression in the show, or in the series, especially because I think I heard she does some more questionable things to Mark in the show, in the comics. I don't know if that's going to happen in the show or not. She's pretty cool. I think, again, this is where things get tricky, where it's like her power set is very similar to a lot of characters that are already in the game, or that are probably already going to be in the game. So how do we make her different? I mean, from what she was doing in the battle with Mark that I saw, I would say she could maybe be one of those characters that gives off the impression that she's fast, but the attacks actually come out kind of slow but heavy hitting. Or maybe she could be a heavy counter character, something like that. I don't really have too much here. I don't know if I would like to say she fights more in the show, like later on. We'll see her more in season 4. That maybe she'll show off more that would, make more sense for a fighting game to kind of make her a little more different. But, no, she's just a cool character that I'd like to see, that I'm sure they get to work. It's just kind of hard to think of ways to make her unique. And honestly, she would probably be higher on this list if I had more of those ideas. Like, she's not like Thula, where Thula uses her friggin' hair as a weapon. As for her chances, I think her chances are pretty good. Again, I think it's just sort of the maybe lack of unique moveset materials, the only thing that might hold her back, but I still think she's going to make it regardless. If Bulletproof can make it, I think she can make it.
Number 6.
I'm not going anywhere with the son of a psychopath.
Hey, I'm being nice. So watch it. Huh?
Let's get dangerous.
Alright, so now with the Batman of the Invincible universe, Darkwing would be cool. I think he was probably my favorite member of the Justice League equivalent in Invincible. I forget what they're called. The Globe something. And I know, yes, I'm mainly talking about Darkwing 2, because we didn't really see much of Darkwing 1 in action. But I think I like that Darkwing is kind of like a more violent Batman, but with at least some powers with the whole kind of Shadow Zone thing. I think that instantly right there, you have someone to work with there, kind of just going through portals and all that. That would be super cool, super unique. I think his ultimate could definitely be kind of taking you there and trapping you there, like beating you up while you're there or something like that. Very easy to think of. I know we didn't like kind of see him. I mean, I know this game has like kind of those violent finisher moves, but I think it's more just so it's just more violent if you finish the character when they're already kind of depleted of health. So I'm sure that could work there. For his chances, I think his chances are pretty good. I think he's one of the more distinct members. And again, we see him, you know, he in title lasts longer than a lot of those characters anyway. And we've seen him in later seasons. And of course, yeah, he could maybe have like maybe a Darkwing 1 like alternate costume or color. And not that he was that different looking. I think he looked a little bit different from what I remember, but it would still be a nice, you know, nice reference.
Number 5.
I was promised this world offered worthy opponents. But oh, how you disappoint. Killing is an act of mercy.
You can both suck my riches.
So Battle Beast is definitely a really badass character in the show that has really not even been beaten yet, at least from what I've seen. And he would definitely be a larger, heavy-hitting kind of character. Even if he himself isn't super slow, I think he would be just because of his body size. And of course, while he is kind of punchy, he could be a little bit more feral because he is a beast after all, and he could also use the mace. He at least used in Season 1. I think he lost that kind of when he became imprisoned. But I think he could just have the mace just for moveset variety. As for his chances, I think pretty good. I'm pretty confident he'll be in the game. He's been a major character, and I think it'd be fairly easy to make him unique, just because he's so much bigger and bulkier than a lot of the other characters we've seen already. Maybe it'll be a little weird seeing him be like all high and like jumping up in the air so high and stuff. But if we could have that with like Sentinel and Nemesis and Marvel vs. Capcom, I'm sure we can see that with Battle Beast.
Number 4.
Who are you? Why do you look like me?
So, I don't really know if this is worth having a separate character for. I really like some of the other Invincible variants that happen in the Invincible War. Invincible War. And I'm not really sure how they could be really different from Invincible himself. I guess maybe they could be a little bit more, brutal. Maybe they could be slower, maybe they could be faster, maybe they could they would all come in and do different things in the moves. They'd be kind of like multiple characters in one, something like that. And they could really just be alternate costumes. The only reason I don't know if they would be is just because there's so many of them. And even though Invincible is the main character of the game, I don't know if there would be even that much alternate costumes or colors. So it'd be a shame we can't include at least most of them. The ones I mainly care about are like Sinister, Invincible, and like Omni Invincible. The other ones, Or at the very least, I think it would also be cool if they were an alternate costume. They would maybe have different voice lines than the Fall of Invincible. Kind of think like Regime Superman in the first Injustice game, how he had like kind of a different intro and some different voice lines and a different victory pose than the regular kind of good main universe Superman. Something like that. As for their chances, I feel like we'll see them in the game in some regard. I just don't know if they'll be a playable character or just alternate costumes. I would really be fine with either. They don't have to be their own character. I just want some of their costumes for Invincible, really.
Number 3.
Okay, buddy, we hear you. So, what do you want?
What do I want? I want the truth! I want justice! You can't keep getting away with it!
Now, Powerplex, I feel like, is one of those characters that people either feel sorry for, pisses people off, makes them laugh, or all of the above. I'm probably kind of all of the above, but I think just in terms of being a playable character, I think Powerplex would be awesome. I'm a sucker for kind of the electric sort of type users, and that already makes him very unique there. I know there's that other kind of character I think uses electricity. I don't know if they've ever been given a name, like that sort of like yellow kind of bolt kind of character, but Powerplex I think had way more of a presence and screen time. And I feel like not only that, I feel like not only could Powerplex be someone that has an electricity power set, but I feel like he could maybe have the gimmick of the more damage he takes, the more damage he can dish out. Think like Lucario in Super Smash Bros., something like that. I don't even know if this game would have gimmicks like that. I'm just kind of spitting ideas out there. But I think it would be very easy to make him a unique or interesting character to play as. Now for his chances, I think, assuming this game does have characters from Season 3, I think he has a really good shot. Now, in terms of if it doesn't, I don't know if it goes to Season 3 yet. I don't think we've seen any Season 3 characters, really. So it is hard to say, but I would like to say, assuming it does, he will be in the game.
Number 2.
Go! The time I spent killing him might have given you a moment to gather your thoughts. Maybe even outwit me. Where is your Viltrumite heart? Until I see it beating in my hand, I won't believe you have one.
Pissing our pants yet?
So this guy is probably going to be on a lot of top 10 lists, because Conquest, honestly, was a pretty impactful part of the show / comic. It probably had one of the most brutal fights in the entire show, and that's saying something. Probably it's iconic to the point of the fight with Omni-Man and Invincible at the end of Season 1, I would say. And if I had a nickel for every time that Jeffrey Dean Morgan voiced a bad guy in a show by Robert Kirkman, where he is opposing a character voiced by Steven Yeun, and one of them gets their heads brutally mangled from the other, and this character is in a fighting game, I potentially have 2 nickels. It's just weird it happened twice. So yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is no stranger to be voicing fighting game characters, or fighting game guests, I should say. So there's that there. Now, in terms of what Conquest could play like, kind of like Battle Beast, he would definitely be another kind of slower, bulkier character. Yes, I know he himself is not a slow character, but I think for gameplay and balance purposes, he would be slow, but he would hit like an absolute truck. I'm thinking he would probably be kind of like maybe Juggernaut in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, something like that. Or maybe Colossus. I just imagine Juggernaut more. And I think one of his supers absolutely has to be, or I guess it would only work if you finish the opponent off with them. Basically how he was going to rip Oliver in half, and he wasn't able to finish it. But I think it would be awesome if we saw a super where he actually did get to rip the character in half. I think that would be awesome. Maybe that'd be like his level 3 or something like that. As for his chances, it's kind of a similar situation with Powerplex. I think if the game covers Season 3. If the game covers Season 3, I'm even more confident he's in the game than Powerplex. Absolutely. I actually wouldn't be shocked if he was the either final reveal, or at the very least, the kind of, if there's the arcade mode boss of the game. That's what I'm predicting. I think he would make a lot of sense, and again, just because it might be a little too early for Thrag, I think for now, I think he would be the last boss. But yeah, I'm pretty confident he's in. I would just like to see some more concrete evidence that we're going to get Season 3 stuff. And like, yeah, I know, once again, Bulletproof did have the one super. He's only done in the comic, but that may have just been because they want to have Bulletproof, and they're like, we're pulling a move from something that hasn't debuted in the show isn't quite the same as having a whole character that hasn't debuted in the show.
Number 1.
You cloak yourself in souls.
I didn't make the suit. I just wear it.
I know this one's probably going to be a bit of a head scratcher for some folks, but Spawn is technically a character in Invincible. So in the show, unfortunately, we didn't get to see him. But in the comics, he is the character that the Viltrumite, I think the Viltrum Invincible, if we want to call him that, the one in the white that doesn't have the mustache, is fighting. And I believe he beats Spawn, believe it or not. Now, in the show, they replaced Spawn with Wolfman, another character from Image Comics. And by the way, actually, if I was having any honorable mentions on this list, you can throw Wolfman on there. I love wolves and werewolf characters, but he literally did nothing except get his ass kicked. So by this logic, Spawn is technically a Invincible character. Now, I think part of the reason he wasn't in the show was because I think HBO still owns animation rights for him, even though the HBO show was like over 2 decades ago. It is made, it's probably a little different with the comics. Now, I do hear the one possible hang up there is that I think it's not as much the companies that own rights to the characters, it's the creators of characters. Now, Spawn, of course, is owned by Todd McFarlane, and, as most of us are probably familiar, Todd McFarlane can be very persnickety with allowing his characters to be used in things that are outside comics. And, Todd McFarlane, if you happen to be watching this, take this with no offense. This is just, an observation many of us have noticed. And we understand it is, it's okay to be protective of your characters. But I will say, though, I do know that the reason he didn't want Spawn to be in Injustice 2 instead of Mortal Kombat was because Injustice was not a very violent game, or at least not as gory as in Mortal Kombat. Thus, he was in Mortal Kombat 11. With this game, you don't have that problem. You have characters getting blood everywhere. You have characters being torn apart. So Spawn fits that mold right there, and he's fitting. He's fighting other comic book superhero characters. If anything, I think he fits in this game more than Mortal Kombat and Injustice combined. Now, I think the problem there is that Mortal Kombat is just a much bigger deal than a game like this. I think this is unfortunately a much lower budget game. And while this would technically be publicity for Spawn and maybe make people aware of the movie whenever that's coming out, that's still nowhere in sight, Todd McFarlane may not see it being, worthy of it having Spawn in it, just because it's not as big of a deal. It won't get, as much exposure to him. And I could be wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he just sees it as like, hey, Spawn was in Invincible. It's a violent fighting game. Hey, sure, he can be in there. I don't know. I don't really know for sure. There hasn't been any, concrete confirmation one way or the other. And it would be cool, too, because while Spawn has been in 2 other fighting games, Soul Calibur 2 and Mortal Kombat 11, Soul Calibur 2 was kind of a 3D fighting game like Tekken and, Soul Calibur, obviously. And Mortal Kombat was a 2D fighter that's probably a bit more literally grounded. I'm not going to call Mortal Kombat grounded. I just mean more literally grounded in terms of movement and all that. Than a game like Marvel vs. Capcom or Tokon or this game. It would be cool to see Spawn in a 2D fighting game that's a little bit more wild, a little bit more kind of just ADHD, kind of things going crazy, characters in the air, tag assists and all that. I think that would be kind of cool to see him in that kind of area. For his moveset, Spawn has so many powers. I'm sure there's something he can work out there. And as for his chances, if he's going to be in the game, I think he's going to be DLC. I don't see him being in the base roster. Usually I know he's technically not a guest character, but I think he'd be treated like one even still. And usually they are DLC. Him being in this game isn't quite as... I'm not going to be campaigning for it as much as I was, for Mortal Kombat or Injustice 2. Just because it's those games were a bigger deal, and it's at least I finally got him in something again. But us Spawn fans kind of know that we don't really get many opportunities to eat. So we kind of have to take any advantage, any opportunity we might get. I know it's kind of a cop-out having kind of a guest character be #1 spot, but again, he wasn't Invincible. So that's really it for my list. Again, I apologize if, the explanations or kind of reasons were a little bit more brief. It's a harder one to talk about despite really liking the show. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know characters you'd like to see. If you agree with my list, disagree with my list, or point out anything I might have missed, let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear. And of course, with that being said, like the video if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. Definitely consider subscribing if you like this video and some of my others. Of course, check out my socials, like my Discord in the description below. But with that being said, thank you so much for checking out this video, and as I always say, another time, another place. Keep being awesome.